enemies of freedom have always maligned the free market. They have perpetuated myths like dog-eat-dog capitalism, the law of the jungle, survival of the fittest, robber barons, heartless monopolies, a ruthless Wall Street fleecing a helpless Main Street. Nonsense. I think it's time to speak out for the free market and individual liberty. The great economist Adam Smith wrote about how it's as if there is an invisible hand directing the actions of individuals in such a way that it turns out to be the best for all of society as a whole. And that invisible hand is a gentle hand. The free market is a gentle market. A free society is a gentle society. David Friedman, in his book The Machinery of Freedom, points out that there are really only 3 ways to receive something. You can trade for it, as in buy it. You can receive it as a gift out of friendship or love. Or you can use force. Do what I say or I'll shoot you. Honest and peaceful people operate in the first 2 modes. Criminals and the state operate in the third, using force and coercion. The gentle, invisible hand versus the visible fist of force. You want to see dog eat dog? Look at the famous Kelo Supreme Court decision on eminent domain. The government now has the power to seize your property and just turn it over to another individual. You want to see dog eat dog? Look at the billions of dollars that American taxpayers are forced to pay every year, money that is turned over to corporate special interest. You want to see dog eat dog? Look at an IRS audit. No, we don't have a dog-eat-dog business world. We have a dog-eat-dog government. In truth, the marketplace has a civilizing and a humanizing effect. If honesty didn't exist, the marketplace would have to invent it because it's the most successful way to do business. In the free market, we see not survival of the fittest, but survival of the kindest. Survival of the most cooperative. Survival of the friendliest. A gentle Darwinism, if you will. In a free society, the most considerate prosper. As Thomas Sowell says, politeness and consideration for others is like investing pennies and receiving dollars in return. A smile has currency. There are built-in incentives in the marketplace for service, courtesy, respect. The invisible hand becomes a friendly handshake between cooperating adults. As John Stossel pointed out in his ABC special called Greed, have you ever noticed that when you buy something at a store, you say thank you, and the clerk says thank you as well? It's a mutually beneficial exchange, and both parties are better off. The gentle, invisible hand at work. Let's look at the gentle, invisible hand versus the visible fist of government in the area of cooperation. Here's a question for you. Had you rather visit Walmart or the Department of Motor Vehicles? Now remember, you get something free at the DMV, a whole lot of grief at no extra charge. At the Smith Food Key Market, if more than 3 people are in line, they open a new register. At the post office, if there are more than 3 people in line, 2 of the clerks go to lunch. In a free society, people are treated as customers or potential customers. The customer is always right, even when he's not. Yes, there are rude people in the marketplace, but it's always easy to not do business with them. Contrast that to dealing with the government. Perhaps no one has ever better summed up what it's like to interact with the government than the French political theorist Pierre-Joseph Proudhon. In 1849, here's what he wrote. To be governed is to be watched, inspected, spied upon, regulated, pinned up, indoctrinated, preached at, checked, appraised, seized, censored, commanded by beings who have neither title, nor knowledge, nor virtue. To be governed is to have every operation, every transaction, every movement noted, registered, counted, rated, stamped, measured, numbered, assessed, licensed, refused, authorized, endorsed, admonished, prevented, reformed, redressed, corrected. Sounds like he had a little experience dealing with government. Compare that to the gentle hand of the free market. If you don't like the way one grocery store treats you, you can go shop elsewhere. If you don't like your church, you can pick a totally different denomination or none at all. But with government, we don't have that choice. What if you don't like the post office? Try finding somewhere else to mail a letter. Sorry, you can't. It's a government-enforced, coercive monopoly. The gentle, invisible hand versus the visible fist of government. Adam Smith said, "It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard for their own interest." In the marketplace, people tend to be well-mannered, even if they hate you. The profit motive can even overcome racism, sexism, homophobia, and other prejudices. Even the most racist businessman eventually realizes on some level, I may not like the color of their skin, but I kind of like the color of their money. Economist Walter Williams talks about how Texas cattle ranchers work long hours to make sure that New Yorkers get lots of steak to put on their table. The ranchers don't do this because they like New Yorkers. Again, the invisible hand at work, creating cooperation. In any business situation, success is more likely to the people or companies who treat their customers with respect, kindness, courtesy, friendliness. Notice the smiley face at Walmart. Do you think there's one at the Social Security office? If the school system had to compete, do you think that your child might be treated more respectfully? Do you think that they may have better books, more individual attention, that they might learn to read? Cooperation is inherent in the free market. It is absent from government because coercion does not require it. The invisible, gentle hand versus the visible fist of government. A free society is also a generous society. Those who are most in need would be better taken care of than they are today. Here's what Michael Novak said of a free society. No better weapon against poverty, disease, illiteracy, and tyranny has yet been found. Capitalism's compassion for the material needs of humankind has not in history yet had a peer. How do we know that a free society would be much more generous than the society we have now? Well, thanks to Marvin Olasky, we don't have to guess. He has written 2 books about compassion, and American compassion in particular, in which he provided examples and reasons that private charities have worked wonders. And he shows why the government's so-called welfare has been a dismal failure from the outset. Government welfare has created resentment against the poor. And in addition, it has taken away a sense of individual responsibility to help others around us. It's time to strip away the veneer of humanitarianism of government. As Charles Murray demonstrated so well in Losing Ground, government welfare simply doesn't work. It's been a disaster, and it's not necessary. We didn't need Bill Clinton or George W. Bush to create the Red Cross, Habitat for Humanity, thousands of other private charities. We don't need the income tax to force us to pay to help the poor. Here's what Milton Friedman talked about the time before the income tax. Privately financed schools and colleges multiplied. Foreign missionary activity exploded. Nonprofit, private hospitals, orphanages, and numerous other institutions sprang up like weeds. Almost every charitable or public service organization, from the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals to the YMCA to the YWCA, from the Indian Rights Association to the Salvation Army, dated from that period. The true test of compassion is to compare government welfare with private charity. And here's a way that you can easily demonstrate this to anyone that you're talking to. Suppose someone is talking about how they really would like to help the poor. Ask them one question. Ask them if they won the lottery tomorrow and they had millions of dollars to give to help the poor, who would they give it to? Would they give it to the government welfare department? Or would they give it to a private charity who had a record of helping the poor? When you ask that question, just step back and be quiet and listen to their answer. And no one ever says that they would give their money to the government welfare department. The gentle, invisible hand versus the visible fist of government welfare. A free society is one of abundance, a place where people can work their way out of poverty instead of having poverty as a lifestyle that is passed down to future generations. Let's look at Social Security, for example. You get a little bit of your money back, and then when you die, it's gone. In a free society, however, you actually have the opportunity to retire better off than you are when you work, and then pass some of those savings on to your children. Author Robert Janetsky did the math on this. In his book, he showed that how privatizing Social Security and government education, along with reducing government regulations, could put $5,000 more in the pocket of every individual, even the lowest income earners. And what does this mean? What it means is, just using conservative estimates, virtually everyone could retire with $1 million in the bank. The name of his book is, appropriately, A Nation of Millionaires. Imagine a country that was literally a nation of millionaires. In one generation, people could leapfrog from a modest income to a level at which they could leave their children a fortune. Knowing that that is possible, we should not demand less. We can't even imagine all the wonders that will exist when human minds are set free to create, when we get government out of the way of progress. Because government doesn't work, and freedom does. Someone once observed that if the government had been in charge of getting rid of the epidemic of polio back in the 50s instead of the Polio Foundation, we would now have bigger, better iron lungs. The gentle, invisible hand versus the visible fist of government. Can we achieve a free society? I believe we can. History is on our side. Every time something has been separated from the state, it has proven to be better for the people involved, the activity involved, and society in general. Consider religion. The king was once considered God's representative. How does anyone suggest that virtue could exist in a society if the government didn't force people to go to church? I mean, after all, surely there would be chaos and barbarism. But look what happened when church and state were separated. Churches blossomed and grew. Society was much better off when the government's crusades ended. It was much better off when the church-state inquisition ended, and when the state no longer burned so-called witches at the stake. Think about the wonderful benefits of separating government and speech. Benefits politically, culturally, and personally. Separation of economy and state, to the extent that it has been done, has produced flourishing economies with prosperity beyond anyone's dreams. The privatization revolution has saved 50% or more and has created amazing efficiency. I look forward to even more separation of state and garbage collection. Whenever someone advocates that something else be separated from the state, the idea is first considered heretical, unachievable, and sometimes even undesirable. But from the grand, like free markets and free speech, to the more mundane, like garbage collection, separation always leads to a better world for all. The idea of replacing economic coercion with freedom is as exciting as the revolt against the divine right of kings, and it's as important as the revolution to end slavery. Utopia is not an option, but I believe we can get a heck of a lot closer than we are today. I envision a gentle society of kindness and cooperation, a generous and giving society where poverty is unusual and temporary and those in need are taken care of with dignity and respect. I envision an abundant society, a society of millionaires, where buying power continues to multiply, where technology continues to bring about breathtaking improvements in lifestyles. That's my vision of a free society. What is yours? Whatever your vision is, don't hide it under a bushel basket. Share it with your friends and family and neighbors. Tell them about the invisible hand and how it works. Contrast that with a society where violence is the norm. Tell them that they have a choice between these two worlds, and ask them gently, which one will they choose? The gentle, invisible hand, or the visible fist of government? Together, we can restrain the visible fist of tyranny. We can untie the gentle, invisible hand.